Hello and welcome to Camp Xbox. Dungeons & Dragons and video games are a duo that stretches back to the beginning of gaming. Even if games didn't have the license, so many were inspired by them. The fantasy tabletop game where anything is possible seems perfect for translating into a video game. There are so many D&D games on every console, and the original Xbox is no exception. One of those games is Forgotten Realms' Demon's Stone, an action RPG hack-and-slash game. Today I will give you its history, its lasting impact, and tell you how I felt about this game. All footage was captured from original Xbox hardware, and I want to thank my YouTube channel members, campers, and camp counselors. And let's go ahead and roll on into this game's history. Dungeons & Dragons has a long history of inspiring many things. It's the foundation of so many RPG video games. And the Forgotten Realms is a setting where the game can take place and is one of the most popular settings in which to play D&D. Forgotten Realms is the basis for many games, movies, and other media, including the game we are discussing today. One person influenced by it was Don DeGlow, who developed a game in the 70s titled Dungeon, which was an RPG like D&D. Don would work on many classic games in the 70s and 80s, and would go on to form his studio, Stormfront Studios. They had exceptionally close ties to the brand, and famously made the gold box D&D games of the 90s. They even produced the first graphical MMO with Neverwinter Nights. Stormfront, through the 90s, would develop tons of sports titles. Some notable games like the Xbox exclusive Bloodwake pop up in the mix, but in the history leading up to Demon's Stone, the most notable game was The Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, the game adaptation of the Peter Jackson movie. That game was a huge success in sales and critically in 2002, and coming hot off the success of that game, Stormfront would return to its D&D roots and have Atari help publish it. This game would be Forgotten Realms' Demon's Stone, which would have some gameplay shown in 2003, but by early 2004, they were showing off more refined gameplay and tons of information. This game would use the same hack-and-slash engine that Lord of the Rings used, but would have improved lighting, and the team would have the ability to build larger maps to explore. Along with that, R.A. Salvatore was hired to help write the story of this game. Salvatore is a famous writer of D&D novels, specifically for the character Drizzt, who appears in this game. With Salvatore and Stormfront's history with Dungeons & Dragons, they were building up to something good. Forgotten Realms' Demon's Stone was first released for the PS2 in September of 2004, and the Xbox version would come out in North America on November 17th, 2004, with Europe getting it on February 11th, 2005. I've always been interested in this game because I always enjoyed the Two Towers game. Demon's Stone has been sitting on my shelf for a long time, and I thought, why not, let's finally give it a spin. And I want to preface this review by saying I have very light D&D knowledge, as I've only played the tabletop game once. My perspective is not from a fan's perspective, but I do enjoy some of the video games that were made for this world, and I was genuinely interested in this game, and let me tell you how my experience went.
I'm from a town called Nesme.
Of course. It was overrun by trolls.
I was in that fight, but I was knocked out early. When I awoke, almost everyone I knew had been killed.
Explains the death wish.
In Demon's Stone, you play three characters: Rannick the fighter, Ilias the spellcaster, and Zai the half-wood elf rogue. The three stumble into helping each other and accidentally release Igor and Sarika from the Demon's Stone they were trapped in. These two are powerful beings that wage war against each other, and the battles destroy the realm. The three characters work together to imprison both of them again. Taking place over 10 missions, you get to swap between all three and see how their bond grows as they get closer and closer to their goal. It's a simple and easy story, but that's fine. I think it sets you up with a simple tale focusing on its characters. Each of the main three characters is written well, with good backstories, and it all ends up being deeper than you'd expect. I enjoy that the game takes the perspective of you being a background player at points. The war is being waged, and you have to annihilate hordes of both troops to try to take out enemies. You aren't some ancient hero destined to destroy gods. You're a simple group that needs to fix the evil that they've set on the earth. It's a classic fantasy tale, and it works here. Each mission takes around 20 to 30 minutes to complete, and it all has a cinematic feel to it. I think it's helped by the solid voice work from the leads and the villains. It gives this game a large presence, and each mission has something special about it. You fight trolls and dragons, you go to castles and swamps. There's some cool variety with some levels taking place on rafts down rivers, or have you protecting large gates from enemies. Each one feels huge and lends itself to feeling like a large-scale adventure. I really enjoyed the snowy level because it introduces you to the character Drizzt. I never knew much about the character, but he does have a rich history of novels, and I'm sure fans were ecstatic to see him. Even in this game, I thought he had a cool presence, and he broke up the game quite nicely because you got to play someone else. I don't think the plot will astound anyone, but I think it's well done. The characters help it the most since they all have solid dialogue written for them. They aren't overly quippy, and they feel natural, which is what I'd rather see. The plot is simple, but it works, and it's fun to take in. Ultimately, it all works together to feel like a big action blockbuster. I was pretty surprised how much the plot helped keep me wanting to play this game, and it's one of the better elements of the experience. D&D's heavy stats-based system is stripped down here in favor of a fast-paced action game. There are hordes of enemies throughout the levels you play. Each of the 3 characters you can play can be swapped at any time, and each comes with their own unique skills. The fighter is mainly good for what his name implies, dishing out hard-hitting hits with his sword. The rogue can walk over zones to make her invisible, sneak up, and kill enemies. The mage has unlimited ranged attacks, allowing combat away from enemies. The melee combat from all of them is simplistic, with A and B being your only hit buttons, and easy to learn combos to string them together. Landing combos builds a meter, which allows you to use a super move that hits more than one enemy. This is the bulk of your experience with this game, and not much will change. And it is repetitive. This repetition will likely turn some players off, since it is basically a modern beat-em-up. Honestly, I thought it would turn me off, since I generally find games with this system to get a little tiring. Yet this game finds ways to ensure this repetitiveness doesn't become monotony. For one, the controls are perfectly tuned and feel great the entire time. Hitting is simple, and getting the easy combos down makes you feel like you're tearing through enemies. Ranged attacks are as easy as holding the left trigger and hitting a button. This simplicity keeps the game streamlined and a fun hack and slash. Systems don't bog it down and allows you to kill enemies mindlessly, and it's enjoyable to do. There's a lot of boss variety here too, with most levels ending with a huge boss fight. They usually implement a simple strategy, such as only using ranged attacks or only being able to be hurt by a sword to keep the gameplay fresh. The scale of the boss fights is enormous too, and I specifically love the one where the dragon chases you through the halls and you have to manage running and dodging its attacks. It's not all fun here though, and as the game progresses, it does tip too far on the difficulty scale. It feels unfair because it's not about enemy health or a type to change the difficulty. Instead, Demon's Stone just throws hordes of enemies at you. It's easy for all of your characters to just get trapped in a corner, and if one dies, you have to reset to a checkpoint, which are usually few and far between. You fight hordes of enemies the whole time, but at the end of the game, they end up cornering you, and it's just frustrating and not at all fun. This happens mainly in the game's back half and kills some of the fun beat-em-up style. I also noticed that the camera gets worse towards the end of the game. The game consists of fixed camera angles, and it's more for a cinematic approach, but sometimes it interferes with the gameplay. I had many times where foreground objects would block action, or the camera switching would throw off controls. Though moments like this are few and far between, and it's not a significant detractor, but it happened enough to where it was annoying. Of course, what would a D&D game be without RPG elements? You do get that here. Defeating enemies earns you experience, and you get gold off the ground and in chests. After you beat a level, you can use the experience you gain to upgrade your character and get new combos, and the gold you earn can be used to buy new equipment. It's not an in-depth RPG experience, but it gets the job done. You can buy some fun stuff, such as giving the fighter new elements on their sword, or giving new armor to everyone to increase their defense, which updates how they look in the game. There are many small things to add here, and the game gives you an auto-buy system to just pick for you. The upgrades make the game easier, and though it's not an insane skill point system or anything like that, I think it works with the simplistic gameplay to make it an easy-to-use role-building system. Overall, Demon's Stone's gameplay is fun and easy to handle. Swapping between characters and destroying enemies feels great, and the minor upgrades you can buy make a difference and add nice role-playing elements to an otherwise simplistic game. One thing that holds it back is a difficulty spike in the final levels, and I do think this game needs co-op. This game seems perfect for playing with 3 people, and it's a shame that there is no multiplayer here. It would make the repetitive gameplay better with somebody else. Though alone, I thought the gameplay mechanics were done well enough to keep this experience interesting throughout. Demon's Stone does an excellent job of supporting the power of the Xbox, allowing for 480p resolution and 16:9 widescreen support. This game looks fantastic here and is a standout on all design fronts. The fidelity is excellent and nothing feels jagged, with many assets looking great for 2004. The character models are well detailed and animated, which is wonderful for the time. The backgrounds feel huge, and with the fixed camera, it gains a cinematic feel. You can tell that the objects are placed in the foreground and background to build scale, and it makes things feel large. The depth in these levels is surprising, and the way the camera moves makes it feel like it's staged like a film. Sometimes the camera is placed behind objects and can be a bit ugly to look at, but for 90% of the playtime, it looks good. It helps that there is a ton of variety in locations, from burning barns to scorching volcanoes. There's always something new visually popping out. The art design is excellent, and it helps that there are so many years of the Forgotten Realms stories being built to pull from. It feels like a fantasy story thrown on screen, yet it doesn't shy away from darkness. Enemies and backgrounds are ugly, but in the best way possible, representing how dark the times are. A lot of detail is built into the areas that could be simple, since all you do is fight enemies, but it makes everything feel fleshed out. It makes it feel like a full dark world, and I appreciate that. Mix that it looks excellent on the Xbox and the fact that it feels like a full world, and you have an excellent looking package.
We have to go! Everyone run! Run for your lives!
Run!
Get out!
Everybody get out of here!
The sound design in this game is equally impressive, and I highly recommend playing through it with headphones on. The sound effect work is well done, with sword swings, hits, and background noises being well implemented. I know many games pull from sound libraries, and I can't confirm if they aren't used here, but it doesn't feel like it. Everything is detailed sounding, and that's something worth appreciating. The fantasy world comes to life when it plays against the orchestral score. The soundtrack feels like it was pulled straight from a Lord of the Rings movie, with massive choruses and loud strings. It gets the game feeling electric and is a great soundtrack. Once again, it makes the game feel cinematic, and Stormfront did a great job of using the cinematic approach on all fronts. Another strong point is the voice work here. All 3 leads have great voice work, and they don't feel lame or poorly done. The voices help make these characters feel fleshed out. Their back and forth feel like a perfect fantasy story, and throw in famous actors like Patrick Stewart and Michael Clarke Duncan, which continues the cinematic movie feel. And once again, the sound design is another element of this game that works very well. Demon's Stone does a great job of feeling rich and detailed. The sound design has a great cinematic feel and excellent voice acting. The game captures a dark fantasy look with fixed camera angles that make it feel cinematic, even if sometimes they can be poorly placed. I also love to see widescreen being implemented here for that cinematic feel. The gameplay is fun and straightforward, where picking up and beating up enemies feels solid. Its 6-hour runtime is a perfect length for this type of game. The RPG elements help make it feel like an even fuller experience, but in its last levels, the game increases the difficulty just too hard and not in a fair way, leading to some frustration. I also don't think this game is doing anything groundbreaking or incredible with its gameplay. It is repetitive, but I wouldn't say it's dull, but you tend to notice that it's not wowing you anymore at a certain point. So I wouldn't say it's a true favorite on the console for me. Yet, not every game has to be groundbreaking, and it's nice to have a simple, good time, which I think Demon's Stone delivers on. If you want light action gameplay with something that looks great and sounds great, then Demon's Stone is a solid choice. On my ranking list of every original Xbox game I've covered on the channel, Demon's Stone enters in at 34 out of 85. I'd rather do a full playthrough of this over Pirates, but Tony Hawk 4 is much more replayable. Demon's Stone was released to mixed reviews, with the Xbox version holding a 72 average on Metacritic. You will see many of the same complaints across the board, with annoyances from the repetitive gameplay. Most publications and websites felt that it looked great, but was not deep enough for a Dungeons & Dragons experience. IGN gave it a 7.3, stating that it does make up for its gameplay issues with visceral appeal. Official Xbox Magazine gave this game one of its highest ratings of the bunch in the January 2005 issue, awarding it an 8.4 out of 10. Writer George Jones loved the cinematic feeling and non-stop action, but hated that you had to replay long game sequences after you die. There were definitely people who loved it, and those who grew tired of it quickly, yet Stormfront would continue on from here. They would work with 2 more movie tie-in games, Aragon and Spiderwick Chronicles, yet in 2008, while in production for a new game, their parent company was absorbed by Activision. With this, so many franchises were left in the dust because they were considered non-strategic, and it seems that this led to the cancellation of Stormfront's property and the decline of Stormfront into closing in 2008, leaving behind a long presence in the gaming industry. I still see Stormfront mentioned today for Neverwinter Nights and Lord of the Rings, and Demon's Stone gets mentioned from time to time, and it has its fans. I've heard conversations from the love and hate crowd, and on Backlogged it holds a 2.9, holding that mixed rating status. I'm on the side that enjoys it, but it has its caveats. But I understand both sides of this conversation, but I say give it a shot if you never have. And be sure to let me know in the comments if you loved or hated this game. Also, let me know if you're interested in this and tell me what I should cover next. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to keep up with the retro Xbox content, and also, I want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube channel members, campers and camp counselors. Thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you here next time at Camp Xbox.